welcome to another edition of Simply Stated. I'm sitting here in my car, so I hope you all enjoy it. I don't know what the song is, I just started playing it. So today's episode is going to cover a few pertinent topics. I'll touch a little bit on the inauguration. And then I think, we'll talk about some other stuff that's come up because I've had some notes lately and some kind of prompts to go through and, the investigations, everything I went through in Washington, D.C. And, I just want to say as far as the fires in Los Angeles and Western North Carolina, you really do have to worry about a dangerous cult that wants to raise rent everywhere and lower people's incomes at the same time, and has, the leaders of which have openly talked about wanting us all to be homeless. There's no other way to state it. It has to be stated that simply for people, because that's what Kendrick said, and that's what their people have said. And as far as what cult group that is, it's Booz Allen Hamilton is the company, but it's a Russian-founded company that was founded through the KGB FSB of Russia. It's called the FSB of Russia today. And you have to deal with the reality that they founded and started Endeavor WME and ruined Hollywood. I'm not sure Hollywood is ever a place you would want to be. But, remember, look at my life story. I was raised to work as a singer and dancer and actress and actually can do all that and write music and compose and put scripts and everything together. I can literally do it all. And I wasn't paid for over 30 years worth of work. Plus, I tried to go to medical school, had my medical school money stolen, and then literally tried to go to a couple of different nursing programs and had people from that group interrupt those programs so I couldn't go. So it isn't that I don't have, sympathy for some of you who've been through it, in Los Angeles or North Carolina. It's that I know some of you are part of those groups and we're hoping to make money from these fires. Worse, Kendrick himself said that they spent a significant amount of time planning the fires, especially in the Hollywood area, so they could then do publicity events around it, and, their clients would then pay them extra money to appear and talk about tragedies of any kind. So there was a perverse incentive for terrorism and what basically looks like a bombing of Los Angeles, but you also have the problems in North Carolina as well. Western North Carolina looks like it's been bombed as well. I'm still going through it on a regular basis myself. I've been knocked downstairs twice in the past month and hurt, not severely, but I'm also someone who lives their life at the level of a pro athlete with constant workouts and training. Last month I was trying to work at a different job and was actually burned by a member of the group. I had second-degree burns. I don't know if you can see that there on my shoulder. It doesn't, it looks like someone bit me. So, the rest of us are going through it. For those of you that I've been friends with who are displaced out in Los Angeles, I feel really bad about your situation. But I've also been there. And I'm really questioning what's going on as far as the money being offered by President Trump, because, I don't know, he's offering, we talk the federal government offering incentives to people. But then I think there's some stipulations. The reality is if you're one of these people that just plan to, you're part of the Hollywood set and you have multiple homes and you thought you had an insurance policy, you're just going to burn your home down. And then worse, you're going to try to appear like J-Lo has and make money off of it or get attention for it. It's just sick. And then Halle Berry has had press releases placed that talked about how she was giving people stuff in her closet. People, if you've been injured or harmed in any way in these events, do not accept any kind of goods donated from Endeavor WME. If they're somebody who's represented by the agency, don't take them, because anything they give you is going to be dirty. It's going to have chlamydia on it or some other disease. No different than the way the Native Americans were treated with parasites on their blankets. That's, I'm sorry, but, it's a Russian company. The clients of it are not going to do anything to help any of you out unless you're actually Russian. So you need to know that. And, let's talk about some of the other issues currently. There's a lot that's gone on. I think the big thing is that over the weekend, President Trump went ahead and got rid of a number of the inspectors generals at the U.S. agencies on Saturday. That happened that day. Independent inspectors, which is welcome because a number of them were not actually doing their jobs. Think about all those who made reports. Think about the 19 years I spent down in the D.C. area reporting on all these issues and trying to get help. And, nothing was happening, and it had to do with the fact that independent inspectors were doing their jobs. Let's also consider this. I know some of you are probably confused as to who Lauren Sanchez is. First of all, she's not a Sanchez. She's Russian. She's Russian FSB. She's supposedly with Jeff Bezos, who founded Amazon, but here's the problem. I don't think Bezos actually wants to marry her based on footage, and just what I knew firsthand from living in the DC area, actually traveling and having talked to people myself. Lauren, that's not her real name. She has a Russian name somewhere, and she wears a lot of masking and makeup, and she was friends with Fatina. Like, when I worked at Entertainment 20 years ago, she stalked me and would come to me at events and harass and attack me with Fatina, and I ended up, she was threatening to kill people, and she very clearly walked through Luther College in 2002 and walked around pointing out women that she wanted to have put in snuff films and murdered. And by I mean she wouldn't pay for it. She just thought because she was a Russian princess that she could demand to have all these women murdered and killed and tortured, and there's been a number of snuff films made that she is very much into having produced and worked on herself. That's who she is. As far as her being at the inauguration, she pretty clearly crashed it and has enough money resources to do that. But anyone who's not concerned that there's some weird freak witch showing up at the inauguration, because that's what she is, military leader for a hostile foreign entity, that she crashed it, yeah, that's definitely a reason to fire Inspector General. Because she shouldn't have been able to get through. She shouldn't have been able to get through on the list. I'm sure she paid a lot of money to be there, but she didn't have the right to spend it in the first place. She didn't have the right to be there. She showed up in what is literally considered a white party outfit. The raw footage shows the other guests were actually horrified by her presence and really uncomfortable. And even Jeff Bezos looked uncomfortable with her there. And it's important to note that. She's actually male, so it's a he, it's not a she. And she wears a mask and everything is photoshopped. There's a lot of heavy makeup. She's not a real person. It's a man. And at this point, apparently holding Jeff Bezos hostage, and maybe the rest of us, how much of this fire is about paying for her next so-called wedding? And is she even really divorced from her so-called former spouse? Because she's very much a cult member. So, and the kids she supposedly has, they aren't hers. In fact, for all I know, biologically, they could be mine, based on the investigations, or some other poor woman's. And they're probably slaves. She's probably out there right now trafficking them, telling them to perform sex acts or something else horrible to pay for her stupid wedding. Or whatever it is, her dumb cold ceremony. She has no business being in the U.S. or planning to have a wedding here. She needs to just go home to Moscow. We don't need you to show up anywhere else in your stupid, disgusting outfits to gross people out and scare them. Frankly, exposing herself like that was an act of aggression. That's what primates do when they're angry, okay? That's what lesser animals do. In fact, I think I know a lot of primates that wouldn't even act that nastily. She's more hostile than, an angry ape, basically. That's what she looks like. And the flurry of press releases talking about how beautiful she is, that's the most obvious telltale sign that there's FSB activity, and, the CCP would do that for too. Just releasing weird propaganda on our airwaves. We just can't get any more weird. These are all, that's just what's up. And it's all important to note that she's the vice chair of the $10 billion Earth Fund. What do they do? Because she's not an environmentalist or a conservationist, which is what an actual environmentalist would be. She's pretty clearly in with the weird, make money off of burning down their Amazon, whack job, quote-unquote greenies that aren't really into anything productive. So, that's an organization that could use some serious research investigation, or even, government investigation or somebody. Sometimes investigations are better, but, the LA fires just basically looks like a bombing, a straight up arson. And it's not that I don't really have pity for people who've been in those fires, but I've had too many incidents myself, and, I'm a little uncomfortable with some of the coverage because it appears so much that they're getting the type of treatment that the people of Western North Carolina really aren't going to get, and then, Hawaii, nobody offered me $40,000 before I went through in Charlottesville or even the DC area. Nothing. So, there's a lot of other Americans who've been harmed by this group and their acts on the U.S. And I want to also tell you about something else. I'm going to say something really nice, though, positively, just so people feel a little better. I used Will Smith's song, Switch, the old song Switch, this past week for my dance show. And I just want to thank him for not putting a full copyright strike on it. Some artists are really mean, and they'll do a full copyright strike, so you can't use any of the music for YouTube, which is just really sad. But he did not do that. Or his management did not do that. So, and no, I would not say I would owe him something for that. I think he owes something to himself for that, because the only person I know who does full of copyright strikes and acts really insane is actually Mariah Carey. And she's now at the point where she's, doing shows in diapers. So, and you're really out there medically to the point and openly lip syncing even though she could sing. So, you know, it's sometimes you like, I want to give credit's due, but I want also people to get like credit themselves, you know. I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't have flaws or that he might not be a narcissist himself, but that's just to counter some of the stuff that came up a couple years ago when he was having issues with his wife or ex-wife. So anyways, moving on. I do need to talk about a couple people. I decided to release some names, yes. So the man that posed as my mom's brother who trafficked her when he was a pimp, his name was John Isley. That's the alias he went by in the U.S. He's from Russia. And his fake wife or real wife was Paula Isley, and then the daughter was Francie Isley. And she lied and pretended to be my cousin. She's not related to me at all. Went through the investigation, said this family is not related to you. Unfortunately, you know, there was a time that I went down to Florida and tried to spend with my dad and my actual mom, you know. Cersei would have me sent to them and had me trafficked. And frankly, John was pretty abusive and thought he had the right to abuse me himself, but they also did it for money. Paula literally took me to Wet and Wild and had me trafficked there. And they ended up shutting the Wet and Wild down, the U.S. government did. Because she had gone there so many times with John and Francie and trafficked kids. It wasn't just me. There was a whole bunch of kids that were, you know, sexually abused there and sold as slaves for money for them. And their daughter today is Sia and is represented in Endeavor WME. So, no, she doesn't sing. Unfortunately, I laid a lot of the tracks down. And then she's never paid me, never apologized. She was crazy enough to try to come up here over the last summer where I've been living. And while TMZ was around and try to see if I would react or say anything. Hey, I have nothing to say to the three of you. You are horrible, disgusting people who need to go back home to Moscow. Because you're very clearly state members of the KGB, FSB, and you can just go home. I want to turn the names in because John had said years ago, or quote-unquote John, because you know he has a name in Russian, he hated North Carolina. He hated my mother's people there, and he was going to go ahead with the plan for Endeavor to attack them at some point. And I couldn't get any more information out of that. And by the time I was trying to turn a lot of this in, a number of lawyers had gotten involved and said no, not to say anything more. You know, just to say that he had said that, and that, you know, because the problem with Endeavor is that they've been pretty successful in blaming witnesses and victims when we try to turn them in or stop them from attacking people in areas of the country. And since the U.S. government hasn't really chosen to more proactively let witnesses, you know, try to stop events, that's all any of us can really do. You know, for me, though, it's like I really cried for a while this month because I had a number of distant relatives and cousins, both white and black, in that area, and by now they're either dead or they've lost their homes. And so he got away with not just trafficking my mom and violently beating and, you know, raping her, and then lying about who he was, because he lied and said he was a Marine. He lied and said he was a U.S. Marine. And his wife really did have a job as a nurse, and his daughter has had one, much to the embarrassment of the U.S. health system. You know, today I figure their licenses have been taken away, but they were nasty people, and you know, they showed up at my Fanco wedding and were really nasty to me back in 2006, and just totally insulting and weird. And you know, John really just looked like what he is, which is a nasty, you know, labor trafficker. Somebody else would have called him a pimp. I'm not sure that was the right term. He looked like a nasty labor trafficker, and he was definitely one of the people who tried to beat up on me. You know, that horrible situation I went through with Buffalo Bill, where I was being beat up and abused on a regular weekly basis. And by that, you know, literally tortured to be labor trafficked and work for free for the company. So, it's important, and that's how they got the tracks laid for Sia. So, you know, I don't care about you, I don't like you, don't talk to me, and don't ever think you can speak to me, and don't expect to ever be recognized by me as a person. And nobody else has to either. You know, you can turn these people into the U.S. military. As far as I'm concerned, you know, ICE can just roll them out of the country. They can just go home. Go home. Go back to Russia. Because nobody here needs any of you, and the laws have changed enough, and people's attitudes have changed enough. We just don't have time for it. We're going to put up with it. I don't have time for anybody that lies that much and is that disgusting and perverted. He was somebody who was a known pervert with kids and, you know, wanted them to be slaves and trafficked them. And he very actively threatened and abused and contributed to my mother having a stroke and losing her mind. And he lied and claimed to be related to her, and he wasn't. He had no relationship to her. He's just a dumb enforcer that Cersei had found to work for her here in the U.S. So, as far as this idea that's recently come up about, like, trying to restore Hollywood, I don't think it's worth restoring. You know, you got a lot of really nasty labor trafficking tied to what's been Hollywood. I'd say, you know, they finally got what they wanted in that cult group out there and set fire to a lot of it and destroyed it. And, I think, I'm glad the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers involved for the military bases out there, because that's who they were really trying to strike at. But you need to consider that maybe a lot of Hollywood was actually just set up to bring Russian activity and the Chinese CCP into the U.S. and to get at U.S. naval bases in that area. And it never really had anything to do with entertainment, because why would they then want to labor traffic so many of us and to create aliases and covers for all these different spies? I also note, for those of you, if you're having a rough day, I got up this morning and I saw a targeted article that was sent to me. It was supposed to be Miley Cyrus talking about her dad and their relationship, and I thought, isn't that nice? All these people losing their homes and their families all over the U.S., and, this weird fake hate group wants to put out articles about families, knowing that would hurt other people's feelings, or should, if any of us hadn't worked through our issues. And instead, I just looked at it and saw for what it is, this is a targeted ad. And I know that from my, education background in computer science and technology around public relations. But it's important to kind of remember that. Just remember that as far as the internet goes, the Russian FSB and the Chinese CCP spend a lot of time putting out propaganda and personalizing it and personalizing attacks and trying to hurt people's feelings. And so it's just really important to never really focus on any of it. But it's ironic to me, because I remember some of the things John said to me years ago when he was being really nasty about me being in Playboy or, anything else I was going to have, because he found out I was going to be in OnlyFans and wanted to ruin that too. And I talked about how I do cute outfits and jeans and nice shirts and, cute stuff. He said, I don't get it. I'm like, what don't you get? He's like, aren't you supposed to be naked? It's like, no, you're not supposed to just be naked. You can, there's actually such a thing as modeling and art. And I said, I get it. Yeah, you don't get it. You don't get it. Yeah, you're a dumb Russian man from the FSB. Just call himself the KGB. So that's pretty much about it. That's all I have to say about any of this anymore. I am, all I ever think about are my own real problems and, focus on employment and, do I have my allergy medication and things that actually matter? For the rest of you, you can make fun of Lauren Sanchez and JLo all you want. Somebody made a meme of JLo, posing in the rubble of someone's home with, an award. And that's exactly it. Hollywood has no place to try to upgrade themselves or pretend that they should be doing anything in this situation, because they've benefited too much in the past from disasters and taken too much time to try to pose as celebrities in those situations and spent money on their agencies to do that, and it's just really disgusting. So, that's really all it is. I'm glad we're in a place and time where people can actually make fun of them. That's good, but it's important to put things in their proper perspective. Lauren Sanchez is actually a Russian FSB member. She crashed the inauguration. She doesn't belong in those events. Okay? That's part of the reason the inspector generals were just fired. What else do you want me to summarize before I cut off this episode? Jeff Bezos looks like he's being abused. Maybe he's in no different position than my mom or my dad. So, think, people. Think it through. Don't just, don't assume that everyone else is cool with what's going on, or that it's actually okay or acceptable. And then that you have to put up with it, because the systems in the U.S. have been changed enough that you really don't have to, Megyn Kelly can spend an episode making fun of Lauren Sanchez and says she's dressed poorly, because she was dressed like a stupid idiot at a white party. She looked like she'd rolled up to the inauguration, was ready to make some snuff films with the Trump kids. Okay, that's what she looked like. That's what it looked like she was there to do. And you need to accept the reality that that's the kind of person she is. If she can get away with it, she went through Luther College and she was like, that one's cute and that one's cute. Put that one in a stuff film. Put that one in a stuff film. And she had a bunch of women murdered. She's guilty of some class 1 felonies, and it hasn't been prosecuted and brought to justice. The best thing we can all do is just push her out of the country. Maybe it's time to move to Canada, Lauren. GTFO. GTFO.